Imagine being forced to flee your home not once, but twice in a matter of months. First because of war, and then because of devastating floods. This is the harsh reality for villagers living near Pakistan's eastern border, where conflict and climate disasters collide in a relentless cycle. But here's where it gets controversial. The worsening floods are not just a natural calamity. They are deeply entangled with political tensions and broken agreements between India and Pakistan. In the village of Chandasinghwala, located in Kasur district of Punjab province, residents are scrambling to escape rising waters from the Sutlej River after heavy monsoon rains. On August 29, 2025, families loaded their belongings onto small wooden boats, navigating through what used to be fields but are now vast stretches of water. Among them is Shama, a 30-year-old mother who has already been uprooted once this year due to cross-border fighting in May. "How many times do we have to evacuate now?" she asks, her voice heavy with exhaustion. Her husband is busy transporting their 10 cows to safer ground, highlighting the difficult choice villagers face between saving their homes and their livestock. Shama's story is far from unique. Across Kasur, families are worn down by repeated displacements, first by the violence of war, and now by the fury of nature. Bibi Zubayda, a 27-year-old mother living with 7 relatives in a modest 3-bedroom house, describes how the floods began earlier in the month and have only intensified. The local mosque, usually a place for spiritual calls to prayer, now broadcasts urgent evacuation announcements, urging residents to leave before the waters rise further. Living so close to the Indian border means these villagers constantly live under dual threats: the possibility of renewed conflict and the danger of flooding. From their rooftops and rescue boats, they can see Indian military checkposts on the horizon, a stark reminder that their fate is closely linked to decisions made across the border. The rivers that flow through this region, including the Sutlej, have long been managed under the Indus Waters Treaty, a 60-year-old agreement designed to regulate water sharing between India and Pakistan. However, this treaty was suspended by India earlier this year following a militant attack that killed 26 people, which India claims was supported by Pakistan, a charge Islamabad denies. This suspension has added a new layer of complexity to an already dire situation. The brief but intense cross-border clashes that followed forced many villagers like Shama to flee their homes. Then, as if the conflict wasn't enough, the monsoon rains arrived, turning rivers into raging floods. Families balanced motorcycles, household items, and even their bleeding goats on narrow boats as rescue teams helped them navigate submerged fields. Muhammad Arsalan, a rescue worker who has helped ferry over 1,500 people to safety, explains why many villagers hesitate to evacuate. "People are afraid of thieves stealing their belongings," he says. "They've been through this so many times that they're reluctant to leave, especially without their livestock, which they deeply care for." The Punjab Provincial Disaster Management Authority reports that water levels in the Sutlej River at Chandasinghwala have reached their highest in decades, following a breach at an Indian barrage. So far, at least 28 people have lost their lives, and the floodwaters continue to push southward, threatening more communities. Meanwhile, in India's Jammu and Kashmir region, sudden cloudbursts in Ramban and Mahore have claimed 10 lives, underscoring the widespread impact of this year's extreme weather. Pakistani officials argue that the crisis has been exacerbated by India's suspension of the Indus Waters Treaty, which halted the crucial exchange of river data. Islamabad also accuses India of releasing large volumes of water without adequate warning, making it harder to prepare for the floods. "If the treaty had been operational, we could have managed the situation better," Pakistan's planning minister Ahsan Iqbal told Reuters. India denies any intentional flooding, attributing the disaster to relentless monsoon rains and pointing out that multiple flood alerts were issued. Indian officials also reported damage to 2 gates of the Madhapur barrage on the Ravi River, caused by surging waters. For local farmers, the floods have been devastating. Mohammed Amjad, who cultivates rice and vegetables, laments, 13 of my 15 acres are completely destroyed. He explains that while women and children are evacuated for safety, men often stay behind to protect what remains of their land and property. This cycle of back-to-back displacements highlights the extreme vulnerability of communities living along Pakistan's volatile eastern border. Experts warn that as climate change intensifies monsoon patterns and political tensions continue to disrupt water management, such crises are likely to become more frequent and severe. Nawabuddin, a 74-year-old landowner, reflects on the floods he has witnessed over his lifetime. The most significant in 1988, then again in 2023, and now this latest disaster. Floods are coming too often now, he says with a weary tone. We don't want war, and we don't want excess water, adds Bibi Zubaida, whose recently renovated home and farmland are now submerged. We just want to live. This story raises important questions. How can communities caught between geopolitical conflict and climate disasters find lasting security? Is it possible for India and Pakistan to restore cooperation on water management despite their deep-seated tensions? And what role should the international community play in supporting these vulnerable populations? We invite you to share your thoughts. Do you believe the suspension of the Indus Waters Treaty is a key factor worsening the floods, or is this primarily a natural disaster? How should governments balance political disputes with humanitarian needs? Join the conversation below.